Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome to Compass Academy, and thank you for joining us tonight for the 2017 Idaho Falls Mayoral Debate. My name is Olivia Owen, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for the evening. A lot of work has gone into this event, and we hope this evening's debate will give you insight into each of the candidates' views, opinions, and actions to help you make an informed decision when voting this election. Before we begin, I would like to thank my fellow students. This debate was designed, planned, and will be run completely by the senior government class here at Compass Academy. We have been preparing for this event by surveying the community, reaching out to our mayoral candidates, and watching political debates. Our students have drafted and finalized the questions, created the advertisements, and designed the stage. Everything down to the lights and sound has been done by us, the students. And now let's meet our candidates. Please welcome Mr. Ronald Jorde. Mr. Jorde moved to Idaho in the 7th grade. He moved to Idaho Falls in 1987, where he worked for the wastewater division for 12 years. Mr. Jorde plans to use tax dollars in our community more wisely and efficiently. Please welcome Mayor Rebecca Casper. Prior to being the current mayor of Idaho Falls, Ms. Casper was a professor at both Brigham Young University, Idaho, and Eastern Idaho Technical College. Public education in our school district is very important to Ms. Casper, and she is actively involved with improving them. Please welcome Councilwoman Barbara Ehardt. Ms. Ehardt had said, "Nothing prepares one for leadership like athletics does. The lessons learned through sports are more applicable to life than anything else one can do." Ms. Ehardt is a member of City Council, and she believes that this experience has allowed her more insight into how our community works. Please welcome Mr. Kenley Osterhout. Mr. Osterhout was born in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and graduated from Idaho Falls High School. He is a U.S. Army veteran and was a firefighter for 8 years. Mr. Osterhout has studied health sciences and biochemistry. He has a background in economics and plans to use this help to reduce taxes. Please welcome Representative Jeff Thompson. Mr. Thompson is currently a state representative for Idaho. He has served on the executive board for the Tax and Fiscal Policy Committee. Mr. Thompson is very involved in our community as a board member, service group member, and more. Let's give one more hand for our 2017 mayoral candidates. Good luck to all of you, and thank you so much for being here tonight. I would now like to take a moment to introduce the students at the table in front of you. Our timekeepers tonight will be Marissa Sargis and Ashton Wetzel. I would now like to turn the time over to our moderator for the evening, Mr. Jacob Rich. Jacob Rich, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you all for being here tonight. Before we begin, allow me to explain the rules of the debate. I will ask you a question and you will have 1.5 minutes to respond. You do not have to fill your time, but if you go over, I will have to cut you off. You'll be assisted by this lighting system up front. When the question begins, the green light will come on. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the yellow light will come on. And when your time is up, the red light will come on. Due to the fact we have 5 candidates, we will not be allowing rebuttals. If you need to address something, you may use the time you have been allotted. For the sake of political civility, we ask you refrain from attacking fellow candidates specifically. Before tonight's debate, we pulled names out of a hat to decide who begins. The name pulled was Mr. Osterhout, so he will begin with the first question. We will then move to Representative Thompson, Councilwoman Ehardt, Ron Jorde, and finish with Mayor Casper. Then to the next question, we will begin with Representative Thompson and so on. We will move down the line for the entire debate. So the question period will begin now. Mr. Osterhout, the students at Compass Academy know that there is nothing more important to success than collaboration. As mayor, you will have to collaborate with city council, municipal departments, and other cities. Where do you see opportunity to improve collaboration, and how will you address it?
First off, America is collaboration. So America is diversity. That's what makes America strong, is bringing in multi-gender, diversity, cultures, all that stuff, bringing that together makes for a strong collaboration, because you have so many different aspects of life that allow you to make appropriate decisions. So collaboration is very important in that no one person has all the answers, so you have to reach out to different people and different classes in order to make an educated decision based upon all known source information. So that's essentially, it just has to happen that way in order to come to an educated decision to make policy and whatnot. That's it.
All right. Thank you. We will now move to you, Representative Thompson. The time is yours.
Thank you for that question. Appreciate that. Collaboration to me is working with people, stakeholders, and people involved in moving an issue forward. In my 9 years in the legislature, total collaboration all the time. We have 70 members in the House of Representatives, 20 members on the Appropriation Committee. There's no way that we could put budgets together or come up with an agenda to finish that session without complete collaboration from people and the members of all walks of life, even different political parties. I also spent over 20 years in executive in the business world, covering accounts from Wyoming to Alaska. Worked with school board members, superintendents, worked with private schools in Seattle. We collaborated on how to meet their goals, meet their needs as each individual private school and each individual school district and their food service departments have different issues, different needs, different concerns. As I've talked to many people inside the city of Idaho Falls, collaboration is strongly needed, especially as we work with the fire department, the police department, especially when we work with the employees. Culture needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the question moves to you, Councilwoman Ehardt. The time is yours.
Thank you very much. This is a great question because it is at the heart of why I decided to run for this particular office, the office of the mayor. The office of the mayor and the legislative branch, which would be the city council, should be working together to collaborate, to be able to come up with the solutions for the city. And right now, the city council is essentially being left out. So the first thing I would do for collaboration is I plan, and I've made it very clear to this point, I plan to engage the city council. The city council will return to their role as the policy making, the legislative, and the oversight body of our city, which is incredibly important for all of you because that's what representative government is all about. The next thing that's very important when it comes to collaborating is when you're working with the city employees, you need to empower them. They need to be engaged, they need to be empowered. When they feel like they're a part of the solution, you're more apt to get a better outcome. They need to feel validated that what they have to say matters, that there's not such a strict line of authority to go through in order to get something done, that they're empowered to go about and do that which they have been hired to do. That is what I plan to do because that is what you do in athletics. Athletics is all about collaborating with teamwork, with your coaches, with your teammates, and even being able to work through the middle of a game with your opponents and the referees. Thanks.
Thank you. The question now moves to you, Mr. Jorde. The time is yours.
Thank you for the question. As mayor, you have to collaborate with city council and municipal departments and the citizens of the community. That's one part of the question that I think was left out. And if you gather everyone together, you might start off with an argument, and it might go to, it might last a couple of city council meetings worth. You just argue until everyone reaches a mutual agreement and that everyone can live with, and that would be a way I would like to collaborate. And then, of course, other cities, you have to always, there are cities that are neighbors and stuff, like the Hit Road project, you have to talk with Ammon because Idaho Falls actually owns the road, but, the Ammon borders it, so you have to come up with a mutual agreement on that aspect also, where it's fair for both cities, price tag wise and so on and so forth. So that's how I would like to change things, and also have the employees collaborate also so you have their opinions on certain items. Thank you.
Thank you. And the question now moves to you, Mayor Casper. The time is yours.
Thank you very much. As others have already expressed, collaboration is at the heart of problem solving, and it's at the heart of what cities often do. We have to bring people together, and as you've noted in the question, you've got city council, departments, and perhaps other cities, but that list, as Mr. Jorde mentioned, needs to expand. Oftentimes there are counties involved, or actors at the state level or at the federal level that have to be involved in the conversation in order to get to where we need to go. And then you do have to also, as he noted, get to the community level. We have citizens that need to be involved. We have lots of different groups and organizations within the community. The Chamber of Commerce, maybe professions like realtors, or at any given time you might be needing to turn to the medical community or to the legal community to involve them in a discussion. And so there is a lot involved in that collaboration. It's a large opportunity there. But beyond that, I think the part of the question was, where do we see opportunities for improvement? Awareness is really, really important. And when the City Council meets in work session, I think one of the things that we have the opportunity to do is to bring new ideas to bear for the Council to consider there. And I would like to do more of this, which is bring in some of those outside groups and allow the City Council members to be exposed to some of the social service organizations in the community that are doing community work, but that maybe because we're in different spheres, the council members don't always get to know what they do. And so we can bring in more participation.
Thank you, Mayor
that way.
Casper.
Thank you.
This question now begins with Representative Thompson. Many cities around the country are facing a common problem: aging infrastructure. Idaho Falls is no stranger to this. Fixing roads, bridges, and pipelines cost a large amount of money. What infrastructure projects would you prioritize, and how would you find room in the city budget to make the improvements?
Well, thank you for that question. The first number one issue that I'm going to make sure of is that these long-term issues of roads especially isn't a long-term plan as we go in the future, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. These things, especially roads, should not appear all of a sudden when we're doing the budget one year. We should be aware that moving forward, working with the county in collaboration, working with the roads department of the county and coming up with these issues, and especially the state as they control Broadway as it comes through town. So we have to collaborate with all those different entities and moving that forward. As far as the budget is concerned, that has to be a long-term plan. It has to be developed in conjunction with the city council, in conjunction with all the different associations, organizations I just mentioned. And that's how I would handle that. That's how I would move it forward. We don't have all the money for all those road projects inside the city, so we have to work with the state. Of course, everybody here knows that we just recently created or voted to sell another $350 million in bonds for roads through the Garvey plan to expand roads in Boise, as well as you've seen a lot of the development in Interstate 15 and down around Pocatello this summer. That's how that development came about. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thompson. Question moves to you, Councilwoman Ehardt.
Thank you. This is an interesting question because it hits again at the heart of what I said when I ran 4 years ago, that the first thing I believe that the city needs to do as we look at moving forward, knowing that dollars are limited, is we do have to prioritize wants versus needs. And that's a discussion, a true discussion, that I think the council needs to be engaged in together in a room with all of the department heads as we look at all the various needs. Now, we have capital improvement plans, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about actually where it's not really excess money, but where chunks of money will be going to accommodate this. Now, we just spent a lot of time over the last couple of years working on improving our water and our water lines and making sure that we had more money going there. We wanted to make sure that our wells were well, not just maintained, but oh my goodness, so that they were not subject to people being able to get in and do harm to them. I think the next thing that we need to look at has to do with our power and our transportation. Right now, we are subject, basically, when there are shortages and outages, although Idaho Falls Power does a much better job than our surrounding communities, we are at the whims of what happens because of the national power grid. So we're looking both with the small modular reactors, but we need to continue to look at means by which we can make sure that our city is secure should something happen nationally, that we can.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ehardt. Question moves to you, Mr. Jorde.
I think one of the biggest problems is the pipes, sewer pipes, I work with the sewer pipes often, and some of them are 100 years old or more, and they do need to be, you just have to set so much money aside each year to take care of these problems. And a lot of things are just unreal how much they cost. Nothing's cheap. When you replace a sewer pipe, of course, you got to dig the street up, so you replace the street also. The curb and gutter needs to be done, so it's very expensive. So I think just setting money aside each year that goes just to that, and it goes to nothing else. It can't be used for parks if you have extra, or so on and so forth. It needs to go just to fixing the roads and the pipelines and so on and so forth, I think is the best way to do it. And the money just has to be put aside. There's no other way to do it besides holding the money and using it for those projects that it's specified for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jorde. The question now moves to you, Mayor Casper.
You are wise to observe that this is a problem, and the question begins by stating that many cities around the country face this, and that is absolutely true. Maybe it's just part of the American psyche, but we often, if we can't see a problem, we tend to forget that it's there. And so when we have buried pipelines, or when we have infrastructure that seems hidden to us, we tend not to pay attention to the fact that it needs to be addressed. The roads, City Council over the last couple of years has taken care to try to secure some funding, a more secure base of funding for roads on a regular basis, so that we weren't dipping into savings every year to try to fund those. And so we've created a little bit of a budget mechanism for that. Pipelines, as Mr. Jorde mentioned, they're very expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars per mile to replace a pipeline. And so what we have adopted in this case is just incrementalism. We do a little every year. As far as priorities, one priority that I see are the interchanges at on I-15 at 118 and 119, those two exits. At this point, they are pretty much overwhelmed with traffic, and they need to become a priority, and we're going to have to go back to the last question, collaborate with the state and with others and with the county to be able to figure out how we're going to solve those problems. We have other infrastructure issues. Our pool has aging infrastructure or equipment inside, and that's going to need to be addressed, and that's probably going to have to be a community conversation.
Thank you, Mayor Casper. And finally, the question moves to you, Mr. Osterhout.
Being a former Ranger, Army Green Beret, I'm a man of action, so if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something. Few people understand how to exponentially increase infrastructure in a city like Idaho Falls. The way you do it is not raise taxes. You don't scrape by just to do one project here and there. This is how you do it. You bring manufacturing, you bring industry, you bring small business, you bring corporate repatriation into the city. What that does is it bolsters your tax base in the city. So you're not reliant upon people and raising taxes on the citizens, because you have all this tax base coming in to the city. That's how you do it. It's called capitalism. You bring in businesses, you bring in manufacturing, industry, corporate repatriation. That's what gives you enough money to build, expand, and make the city better.
Thank you. The next question begins with Councilwoman Ehardt. As the city grows and develops, some historic areas tend to fall into urban blight. In Idaho Falls, residential areas like the original township between Capitol and Yellowstone, and business areas such as Northgate Mile have become somewhat of an eyesore. How would you address these areas so they become a more viable and vibrant part of the city?
Okay, well, first let me state that having been born and raised in Idaho Falls, I grew up in the heart of Idaho Falls on the numbered streets on 13th Street, and so I know of which you speak. Some of these areas are running down, and one of the things that I think that the council, something for which I pushed and pushed hard over the last 2 years, is that the first thing we need to do is the council needs to make it a priority, which we have, to enforce our codes. We have code ordinances that are not being enforced, to the point where I always say, what is the point of having an ordinance if you're not going to enforce it? By enforcing code ordinances and encouraging our residents to start by cleaning up their homes and their yards and working to beautify it. A friend of mine with whom I've gone to school is very much into our historic downtown and historic neighborhoods, and it's been amazing what some of these people have done when they've gotten a hold of some of these old homes and these old projects, and we can turn neighborhoods around in just a couple of years. When it comes to some of the areas of which you mentioned, I know that the city of Idaho Falls has a very progressive attitude towards our redevelopment projects, and some of what's going on right now. I think we're doing it right, and we're going in and creating districts so that we can set them aside and allow growth and new businesses to come in. You look at what's happened along the river. Most of you probably wouldn't even know what it is because you didn't know what it looked like because you're too young.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ehardt. The question now moves to you, Mr. Jorde.
Well, that's kind of a tough question because, I mean, some people just can't afford to have the fancy lawns and the fancy fences around their properties and the fancy cars in the driveway, so it does make it kind of hard to, dictate to them, hey, you got to get this cleaned up, you can't have that, get rid of that, mow your lawn type stuff. Some people, aren't capable of doing that. They are disabled, so on and so forth, so they really don't have the abilities to do that, and they can't afford to pay somebody to do that. So it's kind of a difficult area, I guess. There is, if one person cleans up their yard, then it does spread to the rest of the neighborhood for the most part, but you can only do so much. You can't go and dictate to them. I agree with Councilwoman Ehardt about having codes and, people, hey, you got to get your weeds mowed down, but a lot of times the city in particular can be one of the worst violators when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, I guess it's a hard question to answer because some people just can't afford to have the nicest yards and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. And the question now moves to you, Mayor Casper.
Thank you. Thank you. The first thing, I guess, the most important thing to remember for me, that I want you to remember, is that the city has a plan. Every single one of the areas that you have identified, the area off of Capitol, Yellowstone, Northgate Mile, parts of First Street, and even the corridor stretching all the way from Yellowstone and First all the way to IF High School. Those areas are all identified as areas that need some kind of renewal. Renewal is a big deal to me. Fortunately, we don't have to rely just upon the means or the wherewithal that each individual citizen or property owner has. We have a tool known as urban renewal. And urban renewal is a tool that the state legislature has granted to the local level. We have an urban renewal agency. The mayor appoints members to that agency board, and they then serve, and they use this tool known as tax incremental financing. And without getting into the details there, let me just point out a couple of urban renewal projects that might be familiar to you. As Councilwoman Ehardt mentioned, Hotel Row, Snake River Landing, the new Broadway development on the corner of Memorial and Broadway, the Bonneville Hotel downtown. Those are all urban renewal projects. We have identified these other areas that you've noted in your question as being ripe for that. We've just written a grant to try to get some money to be able to study the Northgate Mile and the First Street corridor a little bit more thoroughly to be able to see if they are ripe for creating an urban renewal district. There's not time enough to go into those details, but we have a plan.
Thank you, Mayor Casper. The question now moves to you, Mr. Osterhout.
It basically boils down to this. When you see dilapidation in cities, that means that either the federal, state, or local government has mismanaged it. You're not bringing in companies, you're not bringing in small business, you're not bringing in that tax base that we need to increase infrastructure, to improve buildings, to improve business within the city. And that's the bottom line. Urban renewal is fine, but it's also based upon taxes, increasing your taxes. For me, I'm a zero-sum guy when it comes to political stuff. I'm not a PC politician. I'm a guy that's going to get stuff done. I don't want to raise taxes. I don't want you guys to have to pay any more taxes than you already have to do that. Multi-source vetting information from Fox News and other affiliates report that Americans pay right now 71% taxes. all combined, which means if you make $100,000, you're only taking $29,000 home, or $29,000 home. Okay, so we need to bring tax base into the city to improve infrastructure while limiting taxes.
Thank you. The question now moves to you, Representative Thompson.
Thank you. Yes, it is true. Over the years, the legislature did pass and approve the Urban Renewal Project Authority. And over the years, with different mayors, Mayor Furman, Mayor Milam, they used those projects, creating the projects that we do, use those opportunities to create the projects that we do have now. It's a wonderful opportunity for that to happen. Now, those have happened to Snake River Landing, the different things that you've seen change around exit 118 especially, and as we move forward, it'll continue to move in that direction. Part of this was the question about Northgate Mile. I don't think you're going to enforce business by just going out there and strong-arming them to upscale their environment. We have to become partners with them in collaboration, if you will, and help them understand that they invest, they in turn will make more money. And I believe that there's an opportunity for the city to create those opportunities, just like we do at the state level, create an incentive for those businesses to see that opportunity. We don't get anything done by coercion or force or dictatorship. It may work in a short time, but it'll never work in a long period of time. And so I would work in collaboration with them to help them move forward and have a better business approach.
Thank you, Representative Thompson. The next question is for Mr. Jorde. So as we were creating the questions for the debate, we canvassed the community to see what concerned them. As we canvassed the community, we found many people had questions about bike and pedestrian paths. Idaho Falls has recently seen many improvements, specifically in areas around the river. But some citizens still believe work needs to be done. How much of a priority is this for you, and where would you begin?
Well, I guess it's not really a high priority in the sense of, the sewer pipes are old, like we mentioned earlier, and so on and so forth. But, it does make it nice for people to have bike paths that are safer than being out in busy streets and stuff and having the potential to get hit by an automobile or so on and so forth. So it's a priority, but I wouldn't put it as a real high one because there's just other things that are more pressing, like, the community renewal type things and so on and so forth. So it would be nice to have the bike paths, but that'll come when other things are taken care of first, I would think. Thank you.
Thank you. The question now moves to Mayor Casper.
Thank you. When I ran for office 4 years ago, I talked about enhancing the community. That was one of my key objectives as a candidate. And that includes making the community more attractive to the people who live here, not just to the people who are going to visit here. And we talked a lot about quality of life. And bike paths, which connect our community, neighborhood to neighborhood, are an essential feature of quality of life. The City Council adopted a Connecting Our Communities plan that was put together after we had worked with, I think, the community. And I was going to say, I think that over 1,500 people actually provided input into the COC, or the Connecting Our Communities plan. And it was very impressive, but it was city residents indicated that this was a high priority for them. And they identified in the plan 10 different paths that they would like to see built. And so we've been whittling away, and so far I think we're on number 2 on the list. But I want you to know that it is important. We have a beautiful Riverwalk Greenbelt area with some biking opportunities there, but we need to be able to connect that east-west. And so we've been working for the past 3 years with canal companies, and we're this close to taking an agreement to council where we finally have struck an agreement with them to be able to use canal banks as an essential trail feature. And so there's a lot coming there. As far as a priority, I'd say it's fairly high because it's a priority that the citizens expressed. Not that I expressed, but that citizens expressed in the study. So.
Thank you, Mayor Casper. The question now moves to you, Mr. Osterhout.
Being, obviously former military firefighter, it's important to exercise. It helps reduce your medical costs. It helps reduce your monthly outgoing and medical bills and whatnot. And it also gives the people the ability to go out and do, essentially community outreach where you interact with the citizens. It's a social stimulation. It also allows you to exercise and feel good. So that increases the citizens' quality of life. And if they feel like they're going to get hit by a car on the road, then they're not going to go out and exercise. If we provide something for them where they can go out rollerblade or bike or run or whatever the case may be, they're going to be more apt to do that. It's going to make them feel better about themselves. It's going to allow them to interact socially, and it's going to reduce their monthly outgoing as far as medical costs go. So it's very important to have something like that in the community to allow people to exercise, walk, get some fresh air when they want to get that type of exercise. So I feel better.
Thank you. The question now moves to Representative Thompson.
Thank you. Safety is the number one issue. I think that's the first thing of any kind of administration should have of the people of the city of Idaho Falls, or any city for that fact, is safety. Keeping them safe, that they don't have to worry about anything. As we have a wonderful police force in this community, and as we move forward, yes, bike paths are part of that. We want people in this, I want people in this city, as your administrator and your next mayor, to be safe. Whether you're on a bike, you're in a car, you're walking, and we will continue for that, for these bike paths to be a high priority in the realm of making sure the overall realm of safety is there for each and every one of you, whether it's students, adults, grandparents, especially around the green belt, around the river, whoever, the people that had the vision of that many years ago, it was tremendous to create that in this community, and it is very well used. And we need to continue that and continue to open up bike paths for that.
Thank you. And the question moves to you, Councilwoman Ehardt.
You know what? Whoops, I don't think I'm on. Am I on? Well, I can, let me start over. Oh, there we go. Okay, this question is a great question because of all of the people on the city council over the past couple years. I am the person that is the biker, the everyday biker. I bike to work often. Many people see me out East River Road biking. When I coached Division I women's basketball, in 3 of the 4 communities where I coached, we had fantastic bikeways and bike paths. And when I was in Santa Barbara, it was one of the most connected communities in the western United States as far as biking and bike paths concerned. So I actually, since I first ran in 2009 and certainly in 2011 and in 2013, I have advocated for bike paths. Now, where I differ, and the priority where I differ is, I still believe in wants versus needs, but you see there's certain monies allocated in our parks and recs. And right now, Parks and Recs has so many projects going on and so many monies going in different places. I would like to have that conversation with the council where we streamline it, because our citizens do want this. And I think that what we should do is, instead of having our money in so many different pockets or places in the Parks and Recs, we should streamline it and get a few more projects accomplished. I think we can speed up the connecting our communities and do some of this a little more quickly by prioritizing that, because we know it's the will of the people. Now we just have to make sure it's the will of the council, and that's
Thank you, Councilwoman Ehardt.
Absolutely.
The next question is for you, Mayor Casper. In previous debates, there have been a lot of questions about the District 91 school bond. While important to the community, this is something that the mayor doesn't have direct control over. However, a mayor can use his or her influence to sway public opinion. What is something that, as mayor, you wouldn't officially have power over, but would use your influence to accomplish for the betterment of the city?
I'm going to wait for the question here. Okay, you wouldn't. Okay, so my brain was moving toward education with the lead-in to the question. What you're talking about is using the mayor's, what Teddy Roosevelt called the bully pulpit. Being able to use the power and the influence of office to be able to get things done. I think a good example of that was the community college. The mayor certainly doesn't have a role to play with what happened at ITech or what happens inside of a community college, but 4 years ago when we were campaigning, we raised the issue, maybe it's time, to explore whether or not ITech should become a community college. And that received enough enthusiastic response during the campaign season that we were able to carry that conversation into the time after I was elected. And we spent time on that, and today we have the College of Eastern Idaho. So that's an example of something where that's already been done. I am trying to think, racking my brain now about new projects where that could happen. I actually have been giving a little bit of thought to some of the things I'd like to accomplish in a second term, and one of them is using the influence of the mayor's office to help encourage some of our at-risk youth to take advantage of the College of Eastern Idaho and get themselves to a point where they can go on with their education. I have concern about I just want those kids to be inspired, and I think that I'd like to put my efforts
Thank you, Mayor
in that area.
Casper. The question now moves to you, Mr. Osterhout.
I would use my influence to push the people's agenda, not my agenda. I want the people to be heard, and I would use that influence to make sure that the people's will gets lawfully executed in the government. As far as District 91, there's some misnomers out there where people say I'm not in support of the new high school. That's incorrect. I am in support of the new high school, but what I'm not in support of is how much it costs. I want to renegotiate the contract and bring it down by about $40 million, because I know I can do that, and then just readdress it 6 months later. The Compass Academy is a perfect example of the new wave of education because it's a school choice program. We're coming away from Common Core and giving students the ability to choose where they want to go to school, which makes them comfortable and feel more and feel better about learning in that environment. And so that's important that we expand that type of education choice, school choice. So.
Thank you. And now the question now moves to you, Representative Thompson.
Thank you. In my 9 years of being in the legislature, I've been a legislator that has strongly endorsed education at all levels, K through 12, higher education, and the Department of Education. On many different years. 4 years I was on the JFAC Appropriation Committee and led in creating those budgets for all those entities. It was during the years when we were right-sizing budgets, it was tough. But yet through collaboration, working with different parties, we were able to come up with that. A budget that was not a competing budget that actually got us out of there as soon as possible, so we didn't have to spend more days there and spend more taxpayer dollars. Yes, the mayor's office can be used as a if you will, a pulpit where we can guide and direct issues that are important to the community at any given time. And if it comes to education, that's something we should look at. What I would like to have seen done was if the mayor was going, or the mayor candidates were going to be involved, that we become involved during the process and how those decisions were made. And it just seems like that didn't quite happen. Something that I would use that influence of the mayor's office over that did not have direct input would have been the event center. Event center, the public, you all voted years ago to create that that group of people that oversaw the event center. We created the tax.
Thank you, Representative Thompson. The question now moves to you, Councilwoman Ehardt.
Excellent. I'm going to take a little bit different approach. One of the areas that I think I would use the bully pulpit would be to encourage our city, not just the infrastructure, not just the police and the fire, which is absolutely necessary, but to encourage our city as a whole, in conjunction with the county, to start having conversations about preparedness. And preparedness in many senses, including what happens if the worst happens. Now, as far as schools and that, I know those are ongoing conversations, and heaven forbid I hope we never, ever have to go there. But I'm also talking in preparedness in a larger sense of what happens if the disasters strike here. What happens if we're targeted by outside sources? I think we need to start having that conversation. I had started with the county, Tom Lindernick, and I want to see that continue. And I want to see committees formed, and I want to see engagement with the community. I know that parts of the community is already looking to this. I want all of us involved in that conversation because that's hugely important. important. And then on a side note, the other area that I would like to see the mayor's office, me, push forward, and that would be, once again, bringing back, but in a different form, the Mayor Youth Leadership Forum, and really to work on real leadership and what does leadership really mean, and to engage our students. As you are being engaged, more students need to have these kind of experiences, and how does that work collaboratively with our government at the city level? I would like to do that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ehardt. The question now moves to you, Mr. Jorde.
Well, as mayor, you can sway public opinion by showing graphs and stuff, like how a new high schools, a new Idaho Falls High School and then an update to Skyline High School would, business would look at that as well. They have nice schools, they care about their youth, they care about education, so that would be a great place to relocate. So I think you could use your opinion, you can sway public opinion as mayor by showing that sort of aspect of the deal. And then you can also, there's just many things that you can use your influence for infrastructure and so on and so forth. I think it's a powerful position that you can make a lot of strides with. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Mr. Osterhout. Our high school business class has projects on display in the hallway tonight focused on economic growth for Idaho Falls. As Idaho Falls seeks to remain competitive with other East Idaho cities, what is your plan for continuing our city's economic growth?
It boils down to taxes. Okay, so if you can think in the simplest forms, you can't operate as a business unless you can afford the overhead and still survive. Okay, so the overhead obviously is employees, benefits, all that other stuff, right? So to break it down in simple terms, if you don't give businesses, as a mayor, tax incentives, lower taxes, they can't afford to operate, especially with the way taxes are right now. So politicians that raise taxes on businesses actually push businesses out of the community into other either states or other communities. So for politicians, it's very important to understand how capitalism works. You can't just continue to raise taxes on the people, small businesses and corporations, and expect them to stick around. So as a politician, you have to create legislation that minimizes taxes, gives businesses tax incentives, and brings those businesses into the actual local community. So.
Thank you. The question now moves to Representative Thompson.
Thank you. I'd like to commend you on having those projects out in the hallway. It means you're in classes, you have professors, teachers that are guiding and directing you as to economic development, what it's about. It's not just focusing on issues with the federal government and government projects, but it's independent businesses getting involved. Independent businesses create wealth. They create wealth, therefore that's where the government gets wealth, and then they create other projects, and then that's where that wealth comes from. I have the opportunity to serve on an advisory committee for Campus Academy in the business school here. And it is a wonderful opportunity. I cherish the meetings that we have. We have a meeting here in a few weeks, and I look forward to being at that meeting and seeing the students and their ingenuity, their creativity, their eyes light up as they start learning about what business is doing in economic development. We are part of a regional organization called READY, and there are 5 business sectors that they're focused on, which is INL, FBI, Homeland Security, Cleanup, and the Navy. The Navy has, part of the federal government has brought in a new project out to Idaho Falls, and I commend Representative Mike Simpson for making sure that happened and bringing that here to Idaho Falls and out to the lab. We look forward to working with economic development, but we have to understand that the people that own businesses are drivers. They pay our salaries. Thank you.
Thank you. And the question now moves to you, Councilwoman Ehardt.
Excellent, thank you. You know, as we've gone through these last 4 years on the City Council, multiple times I have brought up the question, and I have wanted the council to engage in a conversation specifically about taxes, especially at budget time, that I think that's a conversation we should have before the presentations come to us from the various departments. We have raised the taxes each of the last 4 years, with the last 3 years being at the full amount at 3%. It's no wonder that we see businesses leaving. It's no wonder that we see Ammon growing at the rate they are. I have never disputed that Idaho Falls has growth. We do have growth. The problem is we don't have enough growth. We can see the growth taking place in other areas. So how do you solve that, especially if the council is thinking that, as I brought this up, the mayor and the council have thought that the tax issue is not one of the number one priorities with businesses. It's like 5 or 6 down the line. I've been told that multiple times. Every time I speak with businesses, it's 1 or 2. So my thought, and what I propose to do, is much like we've had the energy symposium forums, I want to do the same with businesses. And every business in Idaho Falls, including those who have left, will have that opportunity, and I have a business gentleman who will host this, will have that opportunity to come together. Let's hear from the businesses themselves what is important to them. The council needs to hear this. This can happen, and we need to do that, and I want to see that happen. I will make sure it does, and then we'll go forward after we hear from our businesses.
Thank you. And the question now moves to you, Mr. Jorde.
I would like to look at the tax base, see if there can be have adjustments made to that to lower the taxes, to give citizens, or not cities, businesses incentive to move to our city, and also is there tax breaks we can give them to, if they want to relocate, hey, we can give you this tax break, so on and so forth. If you would locate here, maybe give them a year or 2 without any taxes, and also streamline the permit process. There seems to be an overwhelming amount of hoops you have to jump through to get permits. So I would streamline those and see where we could make cuts and so on and so forth to attract new business. Thank you.
Thank you. And the question moves to you, Mayor Casper.
Am I on yet? Yeah. All right. This is a question that just cannot be boiled down. What's my plan in a minute and 30? There's a lot going on in this area, and I invite you to engage after the debate if you want to learn a little bit more. But I'm going to throw some things out at you. One is that economic development, and I've made a study of this over the last many years. It consists of more than just 1 or 2 things. It consists of attracting new business, and that's where our participation in READY is very important. I helped to form READY, and it's all about attracting business to Eastern Idaho. The second area is retention and expansion of existing businesses. And that's something that our economic development director for the city, our coordinator for the city, is working on. And we've had some great success there within Idaho Falls, keeping businesses here and helping them to grow. Another is development. You want to take nascent businesses or new ideas, entrepreneurs who have some great ideas, and you want to help them be able to go through whatever steps are needed to be able to grow their idea into something marketable. And that's something that we have tremendous opportunity to do because the site creates so many brilliant ideas coming forward. There's also another whole area to economic development now. It's new, and that's talent or workforce development. You've got to have the right people, and this College of Eastern Idaho is helping as a part of this economic development plan to be able to train up workforce or people to participate in the workforce. There is so much more to it than that, though, so I want to be able to talk about it with you afterward outside because the truth is Idaho Falls is growing beautifully.
Thank you, Mayor Casper. This question is for you, Representative Thompson, and it will be our final question. Slogans are catchy phrases that help make your campaign memorable, but often don't offer substance to for what the candidate stands for. Representative Thompson, your slogan is proven common sense leadership for Idaho Falls. What does your slogan tell voters about what kind of mayor you will be?
I appreciate the opportunity to answer that question. First and foremost, it's going to be an open administration. What I mean by that is, if you see me at the Sam's, if you see me at Sears, if you see me at Church, Edwards, anywhere in this town, I want you to feel comfortable talking with me. I have done that throughout my 9 years in the House of Representatives. When I pull up to get gas, many times people come up and talk to me. Anywhere in this town, people come up and talk to me, whether they know me or not. You have to be approachable to be a servant for you, the people. There's no doubt about it. If you don't feel comfortable enough talking to me, then I'm not going to know what is actually out there and on your mind and where we need to go. That slogan is what that is all about. And when we do that inside the city and we get rid of this environment, as I've talked to many employees in the city, they're afraid to come to work. They get in trouble for talking to HR. They get in trouble for talking to the mayor's office. They get in trouble. They've been written up. Policemen have. There's things in their files. That stuff needs to end. That didn't happen in other administrations. That is common sense. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Be approachable. Talk to people. Reach out. That's what servant leadership is. That's why we're here, to serve you, not to make a name for ourselves. And I learned a long time ago in my executive career, the letter I is not in the word team. That's what common sense is about.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ehardt, your slogan is a leader who stands for family values. What does your slogan tell voters about what kind of mayor you will be?
Actually, my slogan is a voice of reason. And so if I may take that approach, a voice of reason means that I am not the one that is going to make all the decisions. I do not have to be in control. I need to be the facilitator. When you're the leader, you're the one that has to make sure that all parties have a say and that the appropriate people have a seat at the table, and that is what I am very good at. One of the things that I think is just cannot even be expressed as far as its importance is that my administration will be inclusive, not exclusive. And so whether it's being able to talk to me or empowering people, including our employees, to talk to the city council. They are your representatives. They are the people, with all of them out there, you should be able to be heard. You're never so close to the government as you are when it's local. It's at the local level that you're able to have the most impact. You need to be involved. That's what this is all about. I'm also a big Stephen Covey fan. I talk all the time about creating win-win situations. We're in this together. We can create a win-win situation. And you know, as we go about all of this too, it's okay when we spend so much time at work that as we go along, we can enjoy it. And we can also have a smile and have a little bit of fun. That's what I'm going to bring to my administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde, your slogan is be part of the solution. What does your slogan tell voters about what kind of mayor you will be?
What that means is I want the citizens to be involved, the employees to be involved, the city council to be involved, everyone to be involved, and to voice your opinions, voice your concerns and your complaints, and let's come to a mutual agreement. That's what that means, is being part of the solution is everyone getting involved to come to a solution, and that's what that means. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Casper, your slogan is better together. What does your slogan tell voters about what type of mayor you will be?
Well, it's meant and it's intended to indicate that we cannot, no one person can govern this city. It has to be done, going back to our very first question, it has to be done collaboratively. And when it is done collaboratively, you have then that wonderful input and mix of ideas. You've got the yin and the yang and the positives and the negatives all coming together, and then you come to a great resolution. And I hope that as you envision people being better when they're together, you can envision then that interchange of ideas. And I hope that one of the things that the public has maybe been able to get out of my campaign is that it's about ideas. It's about the substance of moving forward. What is going to make this community a better place? I love Idaho Falls. It has been very good to me, good to my family, good to my children. And I, if reelected, will want to continue that trajectory that we're on, where things are getting better, where we make that happen together. I want to be able to continue to serve and wear myself out in the service of this community, bringing together all the good things. I have had the opportunity to work with so many fine people who give of their time, their talent, their money, their energy to help make our city better. We've got so many committees and things that where people give, and that's what makes us better. That's what makes us a strong city. That's what knits our community together. And all of this is done in a positive environment. Positivity is important.
Thank you, Mayor Casper. And Mr. Osterhout, your slogan is Make Idaho Falls Great Again. What does your slogan tell voters about what kind of mayor you will be?
It boils down to this. Everybody has a budget. Everybody has to budget their money. And with overtaxation, overregulation, it causes problems. It causes economic stagnation with overregulation. So what I'd do, I would deregulate, reduce taxes, put more money back in families' budget so they can feed their kids, go on vacation, put some money away for retirement, because really that's what it's all about. Everybody has to budget your money in order to survive. I want to put more money back into families' bank accounts so they can do that. When you have homelessness, including veterans, when you have kids going to school hungry because their parents don't have enough money to feed them, that's a problem for me. Okay, in the military, we went over and fought wars to free the oppressed people of foreign countries. That's happening right here in this city across America. I'm going to change that.
Thank you. I would like to welcome up Olivia Owen, our Master of Ceremonies.
Let's give our mayoral candidates one more round of applause. After the event, your candidates will be located in our cyber cafe where you can speak with them directly. We would now like to invite our candidates to settle into their designated areas. Thank you. And while we allow them time to do this, I would like to thank the local businesses that made tonight's debate possible. Thank you to Karsten's Bakery, Johnny Carino's, Signature Party Rental, Zurcher's, Mackenzie River, Bolero, Skyline Animal Hospital, Musso Orthodontics, Romaine's Mattress King, Mrs. Powell's, Culver's, Starbucks, and City Bagels. Without their generous donations, our debate may not have been possible at all. Thank you for coming to support our government class and our mayoral candidates. Please remember to vote on November 7th. To find out where to vote, head to idahovotes.gov. We would now like to invite you to meet with our candidates in the Commons area. Have a great evening. Thank you for coming.